Check 1 2, check 1 2. We are live on YouTube, and the Charlotte Hornets, I kid you not, at least I think I kid you not, have a head coach, and that head coach is Charles Lee. I've got the whole gang here to talk about it today on Locked On Hornets. Topo! Let's do it live.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
Welcome into Locked On Hornets. The chat is on fire. They want to hear what we have to say, folks. And I'm Doug Branson. I've got David Walker alongside me. And on the phone is my co-host, Walker Mail, who would be here via camera had the Storms last night not knocked out power for, what, all of Charlotte, Walker? Or, I mean, is it total blackout there for Charles Lee's hiring?
Yeah, I think it might be. The damn the Schnall storm, it got me. Made sure I couldn't provide any analysis. It was all going to be good analysis too, Rick, but now you don't want to see my face while I give it. I still found a way, though. And I'm getting dressed in the dark. I might not look good. Maybe that is a benefit for me not to be on YouTube, but at least I'm here in spirit with you guys talking on the phone.
All right, well, today's episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. Thanks for making Locked On Hornets your first listen every day. We are free and daily wherever you get podcasts, including on YouTube, where sometimes for breaking news, we go live, and that is what we're doing right now. You can get more of my thoughts on my Substack, where once I am able to digest this, I'll write something on everyhornetsboxscore.com. You can follow David at David B. Walker on Twitter. And I realize now that your lower third is slightly incorrect. I need to add an L. I got the W in there, but I just did. Well, here's the thing. I didn't want to put an L in there, you know? I didn't want you to take that L, so I took the L out. But that's right. The Charlotte Hornets have hired their head coach. It is Charles Lee, and at least all appearances, it is official. Charlotte has released their press release. The Hornets have released their press release. Woj had it first, and we've got balloons now as the effect from David Walker. It's a 4-year deal. Lee will complete the Celtics playoff run before moving over to join the Hornets on a full-time basis. I'm going to check the chat. While I do that, I'm going to throw it to David. David, your first reactions to the Hornets hiring Charles Lee.
By making a serious hire with someone with, ties to Jeff Peterson too, and has coached a lot of good players in this league, learned under Mike Budenholzer, among others, and is still young and is still hungry and kind of wants to make his stamp on this, on this organization too. So I think a home run pick for the Charlotte Hornets and their next head coach.
Walker, your thoughts?
I love it. This is the one that I wanted the entire time, honestly. I mean, not even just with the finalists between J.J. Redick and Charles Lee, but even if we go back at the beginning of this process, Charles Lee was always the guy that was mentioned at the top of everybody's list when it also included a Jordy Fernandez, when it also included a Kevin Young. It feels like it was pretty – whether it was polarizing between J.J. and Charles Lee, it still seemed like most people wanted the experience that came with an assistant serving with Boston and Milwaukee and Atlanta. And so the fact that they got a top guy, that's what's nice about this. Like, remember when we did the whole Kenny Atkinson debacle and we couldn't get the top guy, we couldn't get the second guy? Then we had what maybe was our third in Kenny Atkinson. And then he said, nope, we're left scrambling. We go back to Steve Clifford, the very coach they fired in order to bring on James Borrego, who, they also fired. This seems like they got their top target, which is excellent. One, means that their negotiating skills, their sales pitch, their situation, their reputation, all of that, I don't know about the reputation helping, but at least it was something where it wasn't so bad that Charles Lee decided, you know what, I'm going to stay in this good situation I'm in right now and be an assistant with Boston. This is somebody that might be a 2-time champion before he even coaches one game for Charlotte after this postseason is done for the Celtics. Experienced, young, smart, well-respected, worked with the best teams. Think about the cultures that he's been in. He can apply that here. Hopefully that's the idea. Yeah, I love Charles Lee as the head coach.
I love this move as well. I will third it here and read you some comments from Jeff Peterson, the Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations for the Hornets, a recent hire by Schnall and Company as well. He says, quote, his high character and his ability to connect with players while also instilling a culture of accountability will serve us well as we construct a competitive team built for long-term success. In that press release, Charles Lee also got a quote in there. The Hornets have a talented young core of players, and I'm excited about our future and what we can build here. There are few places as passionate about basketball as the Carolinas, and I look forward to coming to Charlotte and getting to work. This was, in my mind, such an important hire, such an important move to get right. It was the first head coach hire for this new team of owners and for EVP of Basketball Operations, Jeff Peterson. They got younger, they got more creative, and yet he brings with him, it's like the perfect hire because he's young, he's creative, he understands what players deal with on a day-to-day basis, what this generation of players is dealing with on a day-to-day basis, but he also brings that, conference finals, championship, finals experience to the Charlotte Hornets, and they got the deal done. We had to wait a little while. We got impatient, and that's fine. But there was no drama so far. This has been drama-free for Schnall and Plotkin with both Jeff Peterson's hire and this hire. You don't get the drama, and I think that's so key for this team as we kind of, as they move forward and try to build a winner.
Yeah, and I don't know what this says, about the changing of the guard in that building, but remember when the old Hornets used to go through this? There was stuff flying all over the place, and sometimes the result would come out of nowhere. Mm-hmm. This appears to have followed the same track throughout. There was a clear goal. There was clear messaging. I don't know if you take anything away from that as far as what's getting out or what's being communicated, but it just seems like there's more of an effort to be on the same page throughout the building, and hopefully that continues. You got to think it will, with the past history of Charles Lee and Jeff Peterson. So, just more changes, but I echo what you guys say. I think this was what they wanted all along. They zeroed in on it. And again, I do think there is something to be said for the world of the NBA coaching hires, right? There's a certain set of guys who are, okay, in this round, this group of guys is going to go through the process, right? Which with whatever teams are out there and have openings. And to be involved in that, I think, is a good decision, as opposed to going, galaxy brain or zigging and zagging, Doug, and hiring somebody with no experience. I think this is the right move for them.
I think I swapped zig and zag a lot in my analysis, but I think this is clearly a zig. This is the move that was most anticipated. They didn't zag. I think going J.J. Redick would have been a zag. Going Mike Budenholzer would have been a major zag, just picking a name that we have it. And you're right, David, there have been moments in Hornets history where we all thought, well, they might zig or they zag, and then they just dag or something. They just do something completely off the map. And that's not what you have here. You have a team that was focused on an objective, hire a young top assistant in the NBA. They had a goal, and then they brought in people that made sense for that goal, and then they executed, and they got the guy. Jordy went first to Brooklyn, but it always seemed like Lee was sort of the focus of this search, and they went in and they got the guy. And so let me go to the chat here, and then we'll take a short break and come back and talk more about this move. Let's see. C. White says, well, there's a lot about they couldn't hear David early on. Yeah, we had some tech difficulties there at the jump, and we got this figured out. Well, I'm recording this, so I will. Okay. When you check it out on the podcast feed, you can get David's hot, juicy thoughts right off the jump. So make sure to subscribe to the audio if you're watching here live on YouTube. So Rob says, we got a top guy. Rob also asked, will he finish the season with the Celtics? yes, he is going to finish out this playoff run and then will join the Charlotte Hornets. And I want to ask that on the other side of this, is that the sort of one disadvantage? Because if you hire JJ, it was a different story. You got to wait a little while. So hold on to your thoughts on that, David and Walker. I'm going to ask you that out of this break. C. White says, best head coach hire we ever had. Diego with the B emoji, 3 fire emojis, and a dancing emoji. Diego said, are there going to be new assistant coaches as well? That's a great question. Let's answer that on the other side. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
More on this huge news, breaking news, tremendous news for the Charlotte Hornets. They get their guy, Charles Lee. That's all coming up here on the Locked On Hornets podcast. Oh, David, you're doing the ad read. Do it real quick. No, I'll do it.
Monopoly.
Game off, guys. Remember.
Yeah, that's interesting. Walker, can you do the Prize Picks ad read by heart?
No, I can't. FanDuel, I do a better job at, but Prize Picks, I don't know if I can do that by heart. You're gonna have to take care of it.
All right. Well, let me tell you about Prize Picks. March is over. You know that. It's March is over. April's over. We're into May already, folks. And listen, college basketball is over, but there's so many sports that you can game on with Prize Picks. We've got playoff basketball and NHL playoff action. Get in on all the playoff action. Win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks as you and the world's best players take the game to a new level during basketball's postseason. You can now win up to 100 times your money on Prize Picks with as little as 4 correct picks. You can turn $10 into $1,000 with basketball, hockey, and college basketball entries today on Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy app. Download the app today and use Locked On NBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Download that app, Prize Picks. Use the code Locked On NBA for a first deposit match up to $100. Prize Picks. Pick more, pick less. It's that easy. This episode is also brought to you by our friends at eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered with over 122 million parts for your #1 ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, and with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. Back here on Locked On Hornets to talk about this hire, Charles Lee. We've got lots of questions from the chat. We're on YouTube Live. Make sure you get your questions and your comments here. And I want to address 2 of the questions that we've gotten from the chat. One was on Charles Lee staying with the Celtics through the playoff race and not joining the Hornets until after that. So I'll throw it to you, David, you first. Is that a disadvantage for the Hornets that they can't bring in Charles Lee right now to help get things started?
I mean, I guess you'd rather have him sooner than later, but I don't think so. I'm sure they're in some sort of communication as well. You know, throughout this process, I would think that he's going to have his voice heard, whether he's here or in Boston or wherever they end up. So, yeah, I mean, you want to get your guy. That's the most important part, right? That there won't be any major decisions to be made prior to whenever, you know, the Celtics' final game is, you wouldn't think. So he'll be here in time for the draft. And the important thing is you get your guy, and they got their guy.
Walker.
Yeah, for me, I mean, it's funny because that's conventional wisdom, right? Yeah, let's get the guy in the door already. And maybe this is a little bit of people speaking because of the trauma that comes with the Kenny Atkinson situation.
Yeah.
All
trauma.
Right,
it's trauma.
And so we're like, well, wait, we can we just see him? Can we see him at the podium first before we all get excited? And I understand it. Honestly, though, I mean, think about what he's doing right now. I honestly wonder what's more valuable. Is it getting to work right away with the Charlotte Hornets, or is it becoming even more experienced on a possible championship run? getting all the experience with this round that they're currently in against Cleveland. They'll get to the Eastern Conference Finals. And then I think most people would tell you that the Boston Celtics are going to reach the NBA Finals. And so if you're possibly going to win another ring, that would make it 2 for Charles Lee. That might even be more valuable to be on that bench for the Charlotte Hornets. So yeah, I don't worry about him not being with the team right now at all. I hope that Kenny Atkinson is an outlier situation.
No, I don't either. The only reason I was getting impatient with the news of the hire, it was the trauma from the Kenny Atkinson situation, because I didn't want there to be any problems. But look, I mean, he's going to get here when he gets here. There's going to be plenty of time in the summer. I mean, a lot of the players that he's going to get to know and interact with, he's not even going to really get that opportunity until more into late August, September. When they gather everyone for media day and everything. I'm sure there will be contacts made before then. But I think the real work is not going to happen until the guy, all the players get a chance to rest. But he'll be in here for the draft and all that good stuff. So I think it's totally fine. Lots of questions here. One was, does this mean new assistant coaches? I mean, Walker, I hate to say that that's an easy question to answer, but the Hornets have a history, not under these owners, but under the previous ownership of Michael Jordan. They have a history of retaining the assistant coaches from the previous regime. But I think this has to mean there's going to be a little bit of a cleaning of the house with the assistant coaches, right?
Yeah, I think so too. So you're right. I'm not telling you that the Charlotte Hornets have earned the benefit of the doubt in their process, considering how unsuccessful they've been really in the entire second iteration of this franchise's history. But what we've seen from this specific regime, we've seen a process that actually has bucked a trend from previous regimes. So at the trade deadline, they do the classic Doug Branson desire do something mantra. That's what they roll with at the NBA trade deadline. So they bring in a couple of assets, huge things to get in 2 first-round picks. Then they go after and they get Jeff Peterson, a top target really in the NBA. I wonder if Jeff Peterson was just mainly number 1 on everybody's list who was looking for a new GM. I'm sure he was high up there, and Charlotte Hornets got him too. And so the fact that they're able to get to have a smart NBA trade deadline, to get top targets in their GM and their head coach, to fill in the gaps with some what I think are really smart hires just elsewhere in the front office, the assistant GM, analytics department. It just feels like these moves aren't the same old Charlotte Hornets. And so if we're going with this trend under this regime, then I'm hoping that the assistant coaches it doesn't matter how many you want to keep, right? It matters how much Charles Lee wants to keep, and whoever he wants to fill out his staff with, then that's what you let him do. So I hope that Rick Schnall, Gabe Plotkin, they'll just let Charles Lee make that decision. And if this is the new trend, then, well, maybe they will. It certainly seems like it.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting because you've got Steve Clifford still in the building, but has explicitly said he's going to be very careful about getting involved with the new coach, and he doesn't want to step on any toes. He respects the title of head coach and the group that they're in there, so he's going to be careful there. But you also have some experience, lots of experience, a lot of older guys on his bench, and maybe some of that experience is valuable. They have definitely loved some of the player development guys that they've got that go back and forth between Greensboro and Scout. So you wonder if maybe 1 or 2 of those guys sticks around. But David, here's my question to you. Do you think that the organization is going to do the classic thing when you hire a young assistant coach and make
veteran,
right, make that guy go out
salty
and
dog,
maybe Mark Jackson?
Don't you do it. Don't you do it.
Oh, wow.
But do you think that that's something that they'll entertain, or do you think, look, they got their top guy, they're not going to mess around, they're not going to try to make him do a lot of stuff?
I think this is their guy, and I think they're going to let him run with it. I mean, that, as Walker indicated, that's kind of the trend we're seeing. We don't know for sure. Maybe we'll get some answers from the new owners on what they want to do, or maybe they'll talk to Charles Lee, but it feels like they are going to let him have the keys to this car. And, if he keeps some of the guys that are still around, that'll be up to him. But I'd like to see him be able to fill out his own bench. If you're bringing in a guy like that, it'd be great to have some gray hair on the bench, but, let him get his own guys and be comfortable with it. That's what they need. They need a team. They need a cohesive team, and they need people he's going to be comfortable with. that can bring in. Not that, the building is going to be comfortable with. Honestly, they need for Charles Lee to run with this thing.
Exactly. That's totally my thought. If JJ had been the hire, I think it was almost a certainty that you would have some kind of veteran, maybe previous head coach, or older top assistant.
Someone that had coached.
Hadn't coached a single NBA game. Yeah, you would hope that they would fill the. But with Charles Lee, he's already a top assistant for a championship level team. Like I don't know what is another coach going to come in and tell that guy that he doesn't already know?
Well, and real quickly, with Steve Clifford already being here, maybe he's the perfect liaison, right? Like he's already a former head coach. And if you listen at his step down press conference, and maybe even exit day interview, if I'm not mistaken, I forget what press conference it was, but Steve Clifford said the most important thing about this next head coach is you got to let him do it his own way. Like I can't come in and say, hey, maybe you should do it this way. I can maybe give some suggestions if he needs it, but whatever he wants to do, we have to fully buy into that. And so I think Steve Clifford actually is going to be a benefit to Charles Lee, whoever the coach is going to be. I do think Steve Clifford will be a benefit. And I hate to take over. I have to go because of some other hits and because Charles Lee hysteria has hit the Queen City.
I don't think we have ever been as big timed on this show by Walker Mail from WFNZ. Almost went the old station. I can't believe you're big timing us here.
Look, we talked about it. I was like, yeah, I think I can do like a couple segments, and I just wanted to make sure that we knew that, and then I could have to. I got to spread the word. I got to spread the word about the good news with Charles Lee joining the Charlotte Hornets. And it's a mess over here. I don't even have power, right? Like I got to make sure that I'm shaving the right way. I'm probably going to have patches of hair all over my face that I didn't see because I'm shaving in the dark. It's going to be very dangerous. I just want to make sure I have enough time to prepare.
Okay. Well, then get out of here. Get out of here.
Bye, guys.
Go.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we got a head coach. Yeah.
Get out of here. All right. Walker's gone. We got lots more questions from the chat and comments, too, on David, your hair, because the effects that – let me just explain for the people that are listening to this afterwards on the podcast. The effects right now are blurring his background, and it is, carving out his figure. And so there are no like stray hairs, to be seen.
That's no effect, though. I think that's just natural. That's natural fruits and berries, guys.
Someone said the pompadour has never looked higher. Someone made a Kid and Play reference, said you look like one of the guys from Kid and Play, which I know really tickles your late 80s fancy. Yeah, is it Kid or which one is it? Was it Kid or Play? Do you know?
It's Kid.
Pop quiz, hot shot.
I'm sure the chat knows.
All right, so Kyle saying next step is giving Charles Lee the tools to succeed. Right. And Kyle makes a good point here. We can celebrate this move and also understand that this is really step 2. Step 1 was removing Mitch Kupchak from the paint and hiring someone that's going to do something in the general manager role. That was step 1. This is step 2 of like 27, right? There is a lot of work to do. Charles Lee's hiring does not immediately usher in years of playoff success for the Charlotte Hornets. Every move they make in the next 2 to 3 years is kind of a crucial one to make sure that they stay on track and to make sure that they're doing the things as when you were on the show last time, David, we were talking about the things that Indiana has done, the things that Sacramento has done, the things that Minnesota has done to make sure, not leave it up to player development, not leave it up to chance, not leave it up to health. They did the things to make sure that this team was going to be competitive, get into the playoffs and be competitive when they got there. That's really, honestly, a lot of that isn't on Charles Lee. Charles Lee's responsibilities begin when those tools arrive, and then what can he do with them? But still, we can be excited about this move.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, this is another piece, and they're doing it the right way. And so far, they've continued to build upon the foundation which they want going forward. So it'll be interesting to see kind of what his day one or job one is. Is it kind of reaching out to LaMelo? Is it calling some of these players? You know what I mean? And like I said, he may have already been in touch with some of these guys. He's certainly been in touch with the team. Or is it telling them what he needs, right? Is it telling him what kind of roster he needs or what kind of bench he needs? All that's got to happen. So I guess it really doesn't matter at what the order of that happening, but this is certainly obviously a huge first step because again, we want to see everyone on the same page moving forward. That wasn't always the case, and it's not the best way to build things. And it feels like with these two guys in place, you got the start of that.
Okay, reactions are rolling in on the chat. Nada also reacted on Twitter. Nada said the Hornets got a young and up-and-coming coach who is known for developing players and apparently is incredibly connected, getting the connections. I mean, that's – oh, man, there's so much I want to talk about, and we need to take a short break. But the connections part is so important, both with Peterson getting younger. That part of that is the connections that these guys have built and – with players in particular, but connections around the league, rebuilding this thing because the Hornets as an organization, I really can't stress this enough, had become so insular, had become in a large part a family affair, but a UNC family affair, a Jordan family affair. And
they need to join the party. They need to get involved with the rest of the NBA.
Right. And when it comes to negotiating for big-time free agents, when it comes to getting trade deals done, like I think it's important to have branches everywhere. And all of these hires are extending that. But lots to get to from the chat. Nada saying this is a home run. So lots to get to from the chat. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Don't go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We answer as many of these comments as we can. David's video goes mirror mode. And hopefully David doesn't big time us. We'll find out if David also big times the show coming up next here on the Locked On Hornets podcast. But not before I tell you about Monopoly Go. This episode is brought to you by Monopoly Go. Game off. All right, we got to pause here on this exciting news to talk more about Monopoly Go. I know what you're saying, flag on the play. You already talked about that, but there's just so much good stuff in this game. At Monopoly Go, you can team up with friends for timed tournaments where you work together to build up each other's boards. The more you win together, the more awesome prizes you unlock, and there's so much to get. Unique stickers, cool new playing pieces to travel the boards with, hilarious emojis for taunting friends when you smash their buildings or heist their vaults. Plus, Monopoly Go feels new and exciting every day with constantly changing tournaments and challenges. A ton include their own unique minigames like digging for treasure or a robot pachinko machine. And there's always new and timed events that help you win big, like massive multipliers for everything you win, or you can get some rent frenzies. There's always something fun to discover in Monopoly Go, so get off the bench and go download it now free on the Google Play or the App Store. Game on! More Locked On Hornets coming up. All right, back here on Locked On Hornets. Thanks so much for making us your first listen every day. We are live on YouTube talking about this Charles Lee news, and people are getting their questions in, their comments in, a lot of hope. Hope is being restored right now, David, with this higher hope. A new hope. Episode 4. Yes. People think that Charles Lee is Luke Skywalker, and he's come to save the Charlotte Hornets and bring in new players. I don't know how much effect he's going to necessarily have on bringing big-time stars here, but I just think the general, like, collective youth movement, new movement, resetting what you think about the Charlotte Hornets around the league. It's going to take time, David, but it's going to eventually happen where the Charlotte Hornets are viewed significantly differently because there are just different names and different people and new guys running the show. Like, this is just going to, I think, have a great effect for the Charlotte Hornets. And we don't, I think what we're missing here, and I've texted John Corrales of Locked On Celtics to hopefully get some more scouting on this in the days to come. What I'm missing a little bit here is some detail on Charles Lee's offensive philosophies, his defensive philosophies. We do have some comments, and I want to read them here from some Celtics. Al Horford saying his leadership has been great. He's just a guy that cares about winning and transmits that to the team. He's been a big part of what we've done here. It's no secret that he's one of those guys that it's just a matter of time when he's going to be in a position to get a head coaching job. Derek White saying, yeah, he's been great for us. Great energy each and every day, great attitude, just great knowledge of the game. So we're lucky to have him. We've learned a lot throughout this whole season. So you're hearing there, great leadership, great basketball acumen. He's got respect from high-level players in this league. That's super important. I think the energy piece is also important because, look, one of the reasons that Steve Clifford stepped down, and he told you this, he was losing the energy to like get into practice every day and do what was necessary to get all the players to rise up to the level that you need to win and compete each and every night in the NBA, because there's going to be a set of your players that you don't need to do that for. Your Brandon Millers, your LaMelo Balls, your Miles Bridges. They're going to come to practice ready to go every single day. But there are a group of players that you've got to, help them maintain that fire. And so I think Charles Lee coming in, he's going to have that, and he's going to have that because this is his first opportunity, and you want to make sure that that first opportunity is successful.
Yeah, and I'll be interested to hear what John has to say just on the his role with the Celtics, because if you remember, I mean, the Celtics had a bit of a coaching kerfluffle, and not too long ago when Joe Mazzulla was placed into the top chair, and I'll be interested to hear just kind of how integral Charles Lee was to that transition, to helping that organization kind of keep rolling from a coaching standpoint. So, certainly it sounds like they're singing his praises, but you're just excited to see what he can do getting in now. It's not his rookie year, but getting in with Brandon Miller, still early in his playing contract or playing career. The LaMelo piece is going to be fascinating, dude, because this is what the third coach, I guess fourth, if you count Clifford. Well, no, just third for LaMelo, right? Third head coach since he's been in the league, right? Yeah. So it's going to be an adjustment. It's going to be interesting to see, but they've got to get going, right? They got to put a good foot forward.
Well, it's his third head coach, but unfortunately, he hasn't played a lot of games. So there will be at least, this. Hopefully, this will be his first head coach in a while, where he will play under that coach for an extended period of time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I am interested. Now we can look at Boston and glean a lot of things from that. I mean, that is a team that is in a lot of ways very Cliffordian in that they want to be balanced offensively and defensively. Now, they have a lot of firepower that makes it easy for them to play like that offensively, and they can go 5 out because they've built that team. So that's going to be interesting, right? It's not just like, bring Charles Lee and become the Celtics. It's like, no, you have to have similar pieces. Here's what I hope. A lot of times in Steve Clifford, particularly in Steve Clifford's first run with the Charlotte Hornets, I was a little frustrated that I just felt he wasn't forceful enough with the organization to say, look, here's how I would like to coach a team. I need this to do that. And if you can't give me that, then I can't coach them. Maybe some stuff happened behind the scenes, but when he talked about it, he was like, nope, that's somebody else's job. He wasn't like his buddy Stan Van Gundy that said, no, I want to both be the, I want to cook and I want to get the ingredients. So I don't necessarily know that he has to like come in and want to be GM, but hopefully Charles Lee can say, look, this is what I need to build to rebuild a Celtics team here in Charlotte. And so, and that means getting a center that can shoot, and it means getting, bigger wings that are willing to defend. You've got one in Brandon Miller, but you need more. You need multiple. It's not about getting 9 guys anymore. It's about having 13 guys that are willing to defend. Having 15 would be great, but you got to have at least 13 guys because 2 or 3 of them are going to get hurt, and the 3 guys that come off the bench, your McGowan's level players, they've got to be willing to both defend and make smart offensive decisions. So hopefully that's what he can bring.
Yeah, your Peyton Pritchards of Boston, right? Your Derek Whites. They've got guys, Hauser, for crying out loud. They've got guys that are able to contribute. Look, that's the Celtics. The Celtics are, one of the top organizations in all of sports history, right? So the Hornets can't just jump and put themselves there. But if he can bring some of that culture, help build some new culture here, they desperately need it. There is nothing identifying about the Charlotte Hornets. So this is a huge opportunity for Charles Lee to put his imprint on the product on the floor, in the way of play, in the message that he sends out. That'll be something else that's fascinating. How does this new front office, this new leadership group approach communicating with the fans, with the media, with the players, and putting that message out? That's still to be determined. But today, like I said, it feels like they're all going to be on the same page. They're building with not just familiarity, because like Steve Clifford was a familiar, last ditch effort to kind of save anything from that last coaching hire. But these guys appear to be able to work together from what we know. And so that's going to be key moving forward. But they've got to establish their own way, right? They've got to do it their own way. It's great if those other guys are still in the building that could kind of help guide them in these early stages. But Charles Lee's got to build his way, build his roster. And yeah, I'm with you, man. He's got to let it be known, and they've got to be on the same page moving forward.
And certainly in the hiring process, especially how lengthy it was, certainly they've discussed, hey, here's what we're thinking offensively. The roster.
Yeah.
What's, what are you thinking? Here's what we're thinking defensively. And one would hope that everyone would be on the same page about what's currently there. But that's one thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's one thing to be on the same page about what you currently have, but they've got draft picks. They could do some serious things this offseason to remake this roster into an actual playoff roster. And so then, that's where I think they have to be linked up about what kind of players you're going to bring in. And look, draft lottery coming up here this weekend on May 12th, and the Hornets have 12.5% odds at the number one pick. You might have an opportunity to draft Alex Sarr, who looks like the consensus number one pick at this point. And so then you're giving him another piece that he can immediately insert to affect winning. So yeah, exciting here. I want to shout some folks out on the chat. We are cruising towards the end of this live stream. So if you want to comment, if you want to chat, now would be the time. Bam Bam saying Pascal Siakam win ? A lot of interesting guys out there that, are maybe under contract, but could be snagged if certain teams go out of the playoffs. Look, I think the Celtics are heading towards a championship, but if they get surprise bounce, I think there's some pieces there. I think someone in the chat mentioned Drew Holiday. Could Drew Holiday? So John here saying, can we package Drew Holiday with him too? Pretty please. Yeah, some guys that can defend. I mean, I think that's what this Hornets team needs, really all the way down. I mean, I think they've got some good defenders in Mark Williams and Nick Richards at the center position. You need to add a little bit more depth there. Shooting is really what you need to add on the center position. But defense, guards and wings, they need more of it. Mason saying Charles Lee saw the Hornets beat the Celtics in Charlotte, and he decided to join us.
That's true. That's true. That's a great point. I planned the season.
Osmosis Jones saying, sounds like no one else wanted this rebuilding job like JJ, Bud, and Ken. I haven't heard anything like that. Was this a situation where they had to settle for Charles Lee? I don't think so, right? I mean, Charles Lee was a hot name, and they beat Los Angeles, and maybe both versions of Los Angeles, Clippers and Lakers, and Phoenix, who is still deciding on Vogel's future. They beat all these teams to the punch. They did take a little extra time, but they didn't take too much time, and Charles Lee was the selection. So I don't know if that was as much the case. Noah says, I really hope his work with Tatum translates to Brandon Miller. David, that was a big comp. I don't know how fair of a comp that was, because Brandon Miller to be Jason Tatum, that's going to have to be a wholesale body transformation. It's not just about a game transformation. That's a body transformation. But Noah here commenting like, hey, you know what that's like. You know what that work ethic's like. I don't think Brandon Miller needs help on the work ethic, but there may be some strategic things that he's learned from Jason Tatum that you can bring over. But that's the whole point. Like when you bring over a guy that from a team that has championship level players, all of that is going to trickle down into the rest of your team. It can only be beneficial.
Yeah. Clifford used to talk a lot about some of the superstars he's worked with in the past which is great. The only issue with that was that was way in the past. Like that was a long time ago when he was on the bench with the Lakers and was really in some of the superstars of years past. But Charles Lee is much more of this era, much more now, right? And still young and still hungry, but much more relatable probably to these guys and can relate to some of the young superstars he's worked with. So yeah, I think it's going to be a great fit. I don't think it's settling at all. Like you said, his name was thrown around with the Lakers recently. So, if he's in the mix for the Lakers, that he's a serious candidate. And like I said, there's always a pool of guys in the hiring cycle that are going to be talked about. And it's not like he was out of nowhere. It's not like he was on the next round or not expected to be in this round of hiring, as it were. So that's how I look at it. I think he was among that group of next up guys. And I get it. I mean, when it takes that long, when you don't hear much coming out, when you see the Luka video with Redick, as Hornets fans, you're conditioned to be a little guarded, right? And feel like maybe you messed up again, or maybe you were second choice. But I think this is the first time in a long time you can really say that the wishes of the candidate and the team matched up perfectly.
Yeah, we've shared some audio. Bam Bam noting this. We shared some audio where Lee talked about working with Chris Middleton on coming back from injuries, right, and preventing future injuries. So he has histories working with individual players, both on their game and their health, and I think that's going to be an important experience that comes over. But as CJ here notes on the chat, as a head coach, you can't just focus on Brandon Miller like he would focus on Tatum as an assistant coach. A lot of times teams will structure it where assistant coaches are assigned, a couple of players each, and they'll focus on, breaking down tape with those players and so on and so forth. And the head coach will come in for, sort of individual assignments as he sees fit. So, he's
that's
going to have...
That's part of building out your bench, right? He's going to look for those guys.
Yeah, that's going to be the exciting thing. We're going to get to jump on this show and be excited. I don't remember being excited. I mean, in all fairness to some of the cats that Clifford brought on for a second run, I don't recall really tuning into that and being excited. But with a guy that's never coached before, you're going to be a little bit more tuned into all right, what is this guy's particular specialty? And I think Lee will have a little bit of a responsibility to explain, when we get to media day, what are the roles? How are you setting up? Because, and we've talked so much about this in this whole process, being a head coach is more than just getting the clipboard out and drawing some X's and some O's and some arrows. It is personnel management. In fact, I think it's part of what ran Clifford out of the coaching seat and into the front office is they got tired of all of the people that you have to manage, because you got to manage your own people, and then you've got to manage players, and then you've also got to manage the players' people, and then the players' people's people. It's just so much these days. And that is what it is, and we'll see we'll see how he structures that. It's going to be super interesting. Here's my kind of final thought on this. However it works out, the Hornets had a goal and they went out and got their guy. And I think if some stuff happens in the next couple of years and they've got to reset, I think you can at least take comfort in that this ownership group, they're taking their time, but they're being decisive, and they're going and they have a goal, and then they go and meet the goal, and there's no drama involved. And so, if this doesn't work out for whatever reason over the next couple of years, I think you can at least take some confidence in that, right? David, what are your final thoughts as we head out?
Yeah, I think for me, it's just that at every turn since they've taken over, they have made some sort of action. They made the trades at the deadline. That was a big decision. They have moved on from Clifford. They've moved on from a lot of the front office folks, Mitch Kupchak, and they are transitioning now where they see the opportunity. They've made this coaching hire now. So that just makes me kind of look forward to the offseason, the draft, free agency, whatever that may be, and the building of this team, because they are certainly putting their imprint on this. And as they get more people, as they get more Jeff Petersons, Charles Lees, it feels like they are finding the right people that can align their vision. And so continuing to do that moving forward, it's got to give you a little bit of hope that the face of the franchise, the the culture is going to change. It has to, right? It has to. So you've got some positivity moving forward. So yeah, another good move, and they'll have some more opportunities for it.
And the hope is what makes us sick. We're all sickos, as Bam Bam says on the chat. We are all sickos here, and the hope is the sickness, and we just got a huge inoculation of hope from this franchise. So just when I think, that they raised the ticket prices and a couple of other things, and, we've had to deal with a lot of drama and a lot of things that we didn't want to talk about over the past couple of years. And, I think with a couple of these hires, they've inoculated a lot of the fan base with hope. But again, this is step 2 of 27. We're going to stay here every day, tracking the moves, keeping you updated, and holding this franchise accountable. It's not good enough just to go and get the young hot GM. It's not good enough just to go and get the top assistant that everybody else wanted. Those are great. We're going to praise those moves. We're also going to hold you accountable to actually build a roster, because that's the one thing we haven't seen. Players on the court that can actually go out there and get to the playoffs and win a playoff game and win a playoff series. That would be nice. We are going to stay on top of it. Final question here from the chat, and I'm trying to scroll so I can quote who said this. Well, you know who you are because you're the only one that asked this. So this question, a very important question, is Charles Lee going to get a full back tattoo like LaMelo Ball? Does he have to?
I think it'd be a great sign of solidarity, honestly. Maybe start off with just a shoulder, maybe just maybe a little bit on the neck, just maybe Le Francais. That would be a big, if he got a Le Francais tattoo.
Right. But then he might have to cover it up again, on the bench, that would be a whole thing. I think you got to go full back tattoo because look, and here's me, the cost conscious person. I think if you're going to get one tattoo in solidarity, you might as well you're already there. You don't want to pay any additional fees. You just want to get all of the tattoo done at the same time. And, and then cry for like 3 weeks straight because it hurts so bad. All right. Thank you so much for joining us here, this live edition of Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen every day. If you're not subscribed, if this is the first time you're joining us on this big news, we go on podcast audio and on YouTube every single day. We're not live every day, but we are in your feeds every weekday. So make sure you're subscribed to us here on YouTube, subscribe on your favorite podcast app for audio as well. And we will be back unless something crazy happens. I don't want to put that out into the universe, knock on wood. Unless something crazy happens, we are going to be back on Monday. This is going to serve as your Friday piece of analysis. So enjoy it, lap it up, listen to it again. Listen to it on audio if you want to hear David's first take. That wasn't awesome. That wasn't on the live audio. That wasn't on the live video feed. All right, we're out of here for David and Walker. Thanks so much for listening. Go Hornets. Go America. Let's swarm Charlotte.